to show today. So in the webinar today, I'll do an interactive demo of CostX. It will be just a new project in a building. I'll add some drawings, which I've already done. And you'll see we'll measure some areas, lengths, counts, custom quantities, some additional functions and tips. We'll also go into cost estimating. I'm not complete expert at the cost estimating and classifications used in India, but I will, and Middle East, but I will use NRM1, which is popular in the UK. This is transferable to POMI or SESM, whichever standards you wish to complete your bills or cost plans in. So this is just a light sort of agenda of what we will go through. And then we'll complete the webinar with BIM and 3D measurement. So we'll just look at adding a couple DWFX files which come from Revit and how we can handle them in terms of navigation and extracting the quants very, very quickly. So I've added some drawings in here. I've added one DWG, which is straight from AutoCAD. I've ordered this, added this JPEG files. Obviously, this is a dumb image. It can very conceptual. I can rotate this very quickly like this. So if I just have something that's drawn quickly by an architect, I can rotate this to a drawn line. So it works with many different file formats. I think that's very important. So you can see in supported files, there are many DWG, 12D files, PDF, BMP, GIF files, PDFs, TIFF files, Revit files, SketchUp, Universal 3D files, IFCs, all can be added directly into the CostX engine, which is, I think, very useful. In terms of calibrating, again, I come over here and I can calibrate the x-axis. I'm just going to find a known dimension just over here, click calibrate x-axis, come over here, click from one to another. I think that's 3620. And now this is scaled. So if I just do a quick measurement here, that's fine. Now I can open my PDF drawing. PDFs are more intelligent, so I can quickly remove layers from here. You can see as I click away on the drawing, I can remove layers, and it becomes much easier for me to navigate the drawing. In this case, I'm just going to remove the grid and the roof, and I will calibrate it in the same way. So go from point to point like this. Notice that I'm snapping to the lines, which is very useful. And DWG finally, it's worth just showing. These come scaled already, and they also have these layers. What's nice in CostX is that you can easily look at layers and invert them. So if I wanted to just see my furniture or my sanitary, I'd click sanitary and invert. And you can see I have just my sanitary ware on my drawing. So it's very easy to just isolate different geometry of the drawing. If I want to look at windows, invert, I can go here and maybe include the wall, the context, the tag, and then invert again. And then I can save this view if I wish, which is quite useful, so I don't have to do this process again. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to measure the bedrooms in all three drawings. So in the JPEG, for example, I'm going to add what we call a dimension group. So this will be bedrooms in a folder called rooms. We will say the height is 2.6 meters, and it's a randomly generated color. I'd come over here and I'll go bedroom 3. So this is straightforward. We click from point to point, very straightforward. And as we increase the intelligence and we go to the PDF, you can see now we're using lines. So now I can just Click here, click each point, and I'm clicking lines. Notice that I have a wall area and a volume. So it gives me more than one than just area. So even though I have an area, also I have a length, which is the perimeter I can use for timber skirting, wall area I can use for painting, and volume I can also use for air conditioning. There's also other features like shift key where I can measure any square area very quickly like this. And I can join these up together, remove these layers, and join areas together. So that's very useful. In the DWG, works the same way as the PDF, but I can use the L key instead. So I use L, and this uses the polylines that have been used in the design software. And see, I can pick up these very quickly. So this is if the designer has used polylines, it helps us massively to pick up these areas. I won't measure them all, but you see how we work with curves. Just drag it around and press enter. Very streamlined, very quick. If I click on the GFA, this has been drawn as a polyline, so I can measure this in one go. Anything to do with deductions, I can go into negative, and you see this will automatically deduct from my dimension group. So I've got 250 meters squared nearly there. Dimensions, these are the individual dimensions. I can rename these or label the drawing if I wish. I can label it. I can put a legend and print this out to a report. So if I quickly need to issue some type of drawing, I can do. So that's measuring areas. If I need to measure a length, let's say stud partitions, this will be as a length. Height is 2.6. Measure dimensions. So this is, I can add custom quantities. So if I say stud, um, the studs themselves, the timber studs, I can say, okay, I just want a number. So this will create a custom quantity. So all I tell it is that every time that I see a length, so length divided by, this could be a variable too, but I want to say every 300 millimeters, there is going to be a stud. And then I can do round to 0 decimal places plus 1. This will then round it. So maybe I can even round up. So I create the dimension group. I put all the details in. I say insert, measure it in one go. And you can see now I have the length, the wall area, and the amount of studs for this wall. And that is a very simple example I've used for the studs, but you can go into much more detail about the custom quantities. You can have unlimited custom quantities, which you could measure a slab and then have the reinforcement. You could have the working space. You could have disposal. Anything you want, you can build into the custom quant. There are lots of videos online. Same with negative. If I wanted to deduct the doors, I would just go from here to here. I won't do all of them. I just do 1, 2, 3. Let's do 3. And this is going to assume the height of the wall. So I want to change the height of these to 2.1. And that will deduct my number of studs, and it will also deduct my wall area. So if I want to see just how I'm getting on and what the visual looks like, I can view this in 3D, which is very useful just to see I've deducted my doors, and this is a 3D visual of what I've just measured. So you can build this up with all your different types of partitions, different types of walls, and you can see we can show a legend there at the top as well. So that's measuring length. So I've measured some areas, I've measured a length. This applies the same for structural drawings, M&E drawings, same thing. MEP, if you're measuring ductwork, you're measuring pipes, same thing. Reinforcement, spacing, there's special functions for doing spacing and reinforcement if that's what you need to do. We can do counts as well. So if I said WC pans, I can count. That's fine. So there's a few functions for counting. Oops, I said WC PAMs. And so I can use block count like this, and it will pick up all similar blocks in one go. So you see I've counted 2 in this DWG. So in AutoCAD, this works quite well to pick up multiple blocks. But if you are only receiving PDF drawings, then it may differ slightly and you won't have access to those blocks. So what there is an opportunity to do is use auto count. So I'm going to isolate the sanitary, and I'm going to click auto count here and click capture. All I do is make a capture of the thing I want to count, search the drawing, and it will look at all the geometry just on this drawing, and it will find all of those WC pans, toilets. You can see, okay, this is great. It's found 2. And I can use these slider bars just for sensitivity. You can see as I move it along, it finds other things, but I'm happy with the 2 it's found there. Nothing else. Total matches. I can cycle between them just to have a look. I can reject one if some doesn't look correct, and then save the accepted. Very basic example, but it's good for mechanical drawings when there's many types of fittings that you need to count, fan coil units, and you can also search on text. You don't necessarily have to check on the fixture itself. You can look for certain text and say, okay, if there's a door type 1, D1, you can search the drawing for D1 and it will find all of those on the drawing. So that's just ways to count in 2D measures. Now, that's measurement. If there's any questions that people have in terms of measurement, please feel free to ask now. All right, so I'll continue on. So here in the workbook, this is where you can use your dimension groups that you've created to create an estimate. So in the UK, we use NRM1, but there are phraseologies. I don't have this loaded in this desktop, but you have access to POMI, SESM, all global standards. So you can drag them in and create estimates as you prefer. So it's very open. If I open this, I'm going to create some elements. So those are my initial elements. I'm going to go into internal finishes, and I'm going to create some sub-elements. So here are my sub-elements: wall, floor, ceiling finishes. Underneath these, I'm going to create line items. So for floor finishes, I'm going to grab bedrooms, put it here at the top, and say carpet 2-bedroom areas. I'm going to type in a rate. Let's say £50 per meter squared. And there I have a value. If I drag in, let's leave that. let's leave that floor finishes as it is. You can see a blue value, and that indicates a subsheet. So we drill down and we can see, oh, that's our line item. Wall finishes. If we drill down into wall finishes, I want to create an item called paint 2-bedroom walls. This is going to be meter squared. So I take bedrooms, drag it into quantity, and quantity type is wall area because it's taken the length and I've typed in a height of 2.6. So it's automatically giving me a wall area. So that is in there, put in a rate, and that's done. Come up one level. So you see we're building up costs for our wall finishes, floor finishes by level. Then ceiling finishes. So if I go back to my drawings and then just add some more measurements, for example, so I'm going to say bathrooms, default height 2.6. So I'm going to go ahead and measure this bathroom, this bathroom, this bathroom, come to my cost plan. Now I build up bathrooms here, drag it in, ceramic tiles to bathroom areas, update, fine. And these green values, what they indicate is a live link. So if I click on this 23 and click show source, it takes me to my drawing and you can see, oh, okay, so this is good for checking if for your boss or your colleagues who are seeing what was measured and where. What if, for example, I wanted to include my laundry room in bathrooms? So I want to include this. It's increased to 29 meters squared. Come to my cost plan. It's changed immediately to 29 meters squared. So this is the main thing in CostX is the link between the drawings and your estimate. You can have items, but they're directly linked to your takeoff. Then we come down into ceiling finishes and I'm going to create plasterboard. And this will be quantity, double click inside here. And I know both of my bathroom and bedrooms contain plasterboard. So this is a build up, 129 meters squared. And then again, I can double click into the rate to create a build up. So my labor will be half an hour per meter squared. So let's say 30 and my supply 1 meter squared 10. It's quite similar to Excel. And then we can just go up a level and we have 129 pounds, 129 meters squared times 25, and it automatically calculates the total. So we go up a level and we have our hierarchy of finishes and we go up and this is our total cost for internal finishes. I'll do one more for superstructure. So we come down into superstructure and we create some sub elements, internal walls and partitions. I simply want to bring in my stud partitions that I've measured. Update. Okay. There. And I have hierarchy of costs. Do one more for the WC pans. So these are services, which would be the mechanical and electrical. Bring these in. My sanitary installations. WC pans. Okay. Number. Then prelims, let's say prelims will be 6%, and this will be equals to the sum of H1 to H9, and we put just a percentage here. So prelims and maybe just project total. So this is how we end up creating our cost estimate based on our drawings. Then finally, how does BIM come into play? So this is a Revit drawing or a Revit model that's been exported to DWFX because it's very light and it's compressed. So this is only like 1 MB for this model, which is great for transmitting and for loading times. So if I check the object properties, and it's very good, it's got an area, it's got a volume. So I can pull out quantities very quickly from a model. I can say, go to this model tree, and I want to pick some floors. I want to pick some roof and some columns, for example. What I can do very quickly is import the dimensions and say, okay, fine, let's extract whatever I'm looking at on the screen. And you'll see on the left-hand side, straight away, it will generate these quantities based on these objects. So if I want to look at basic roof, Coralink roof panel, isolate. So you can see there it's taken out the areas of each and totaled them here. Sometimes we can't rely on the quantities exactly from the model, so we may need to just check them. So I'm going to do a quick 3D roof check. And you can see there 51.77. That is what I'm getting from the geometry itself. You can also measure like this, go from point to point like that. So I can measure any face very quickly, but I can also measure manually. And you can see I've got 51.77 versus 52 meters squared. So that means it's been rounded up when it's been exported from the Revit. So I need to go back to Revit or ask the designer to export to 2 decimal places. This is a very, very simple example of collaboration with the designer to get the best out of the 3D model. There are the tools in CostX to get around that. Here we can see the area. This is the schedule where we can just note all of the properties that are coming from the model. Let's show all objects. There are a much deeper quantification tools like model maps, which we won't go into today, but they allow you to use the information in the schedule to your requirement. So if you need to structure this by specialty equipment, by different sizes, it's possible. You can also export this schedule out and import your own information. So one more thing I'll show before we take questions is you can link this model with the 2D plans. So if I go to drawing sets and I want to allocate these drawings with this model, what this does is allows me to let's run the whole template for all the objects. So what it's doing now is it's going through every object and it's extracting it as it feels best. So if it's a structural column, it will map the length. If it's a floor, it will take the area and so on. And you'll see on the left-hand side, it's quite a clever template, but if you need more control, you can use model maps. Now, model maps is more of an advanced function. There's many videos online that you can look at if that's something you're interested in. And you see we've extracted everything from the model, which is a very useful feature. Not the best, but it still gives you a very good idea. We can see all of our structural framing. If we look at doors, that's great. If I click on doors here, if I open any of the 2D views, let's look at ground floor plan. What you'll notice is that the doors that have been extracted from the model will superimpose on the 2D views. So if I click on this bifold door, you can see it's here. So these are linked by object IDs. It's a very clever feature that it has, and it allows you to really look into detail about what has been measured in your drawing. And it allows you to measure things that aren't modeled, because there's lots of things like timber skirting. And I remember from this example, if we look here and we hide the roof, you can see there's no ceiling object. So we have a house, but no ceiling. We just have roof. So we can come back to here and we can make an allowance and say ceiling allowance. And we can come in here and we can use our regular line mode. That's the deck. There we go. So here's our ceiling plan that for the ceilings that weren't measured, just as an example. And then you can easily, if I've made a mistake, come over here. So another thing, just looking at elevations. And I can see all the battens that are being used and the lengths. All right, so I think I've shown most of the things in CostX. So just the 2D measurement, the workbooks, and 3D and BIM. There are some other features like revision, subcontractors, data books is coming out soon. Um, do we have any questions about anything really in the software?
Sir, I want to ask you what type of construction professionals use the CostX software?
Sorry, I can't hear you at all.
Am I audible now?
Hello?
Am I audible now, sir?
I can't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Am I audible now, sir?
I'm
Hello,
not
am I audible?
yeah. I can't hear exactly what you're saying.
Sir, I'm asking what type of construction professionals use the CostX software?
Which other construction professionals?
Yes, yes, right.
It will be contractors, subcontractors, cost consultants. Um, those are the most likely people to use it. But maybe mainly quantity surveyors, cost managers, contractors, and subcontractors. PDF, DWG, JPEG, GIF files, Revit files, DWFX, IFC files, many different ones here. If we have a look, if I go to add, you can see all of the different types of drawings just here.